Carl Sagan could not have predicted 2021, but he did see it coming. He wrote the following back in 1995, and we quote, "I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the 30-second sound bites now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance." Roll that around for a while. Those were among his final published words. He died 10 months later. Here we are 25 years later, realizing just what he was trying to tell us back then.
We're very powerful. This country is very powerful. It's far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world that we have. More powerful than anybody, not even close.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Let's go, Chad.
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream tonight, guys. I have another amazing episode for you guys. TGIF. Thank God it is Friday. Right off the bat, guys, today's main topic tonight is China. Chinese warp drives, and really the broader conversation of, is China, what is going on with this race for this advanced technology between the United States and China? And somebody in the chat just now brought up a great point, which is, what if China is just releasing all of this stuff as publicly as possible, and that's their answer to losing the shadow war? Because that's what's happening. China, chat. China doesn't have the same level of technology that we do. Nobody else is even close. You heard Donald Trump say that, but they're trying to get it. If I was the one that was behind in the technology tree race, if I'm playing Civilization and I'm behind in the tech tree race, yeah, I got to steal all their technologies. I got to steal the technologies of Rome and whatever, not India, but like America and the countries that have good technologies. Okay, Chad, don't cancel me. I'm just joking. Okay, we're going to talk more about that a little bit later, but let's get right into it. We're going to cover the political stuff right off the bat here tonight, guys. There's not much to get into. Number one, MAGA is dead, chat. I found out yesterday. I woke up yesterday. I checked my Twitter, and all I saw were a bunch of IDS accounts proclaiming that MAGA is dead. It's all over. Nobody told me it was all over. I thought Trump was still the president. I thought everything was going smoothly. But nope, apparently it's been declared. It's all over now. So now we have to apparently all become Nazis. We have to all hate minorities and Jewish people. Now that's the rules. I don't make them. Anyway, just kidding, guys. MAGA is not dead. It doesn't get proclaimed by random people on the internet who declare MAGA to be dead. And this hysteria has taken kind of a hilarious turn today where the people that were screaming on the internet about absolutism for free speech for some like Nazi kid that like follows Nick Fuentes throwing coins at Dave Portnoy, which is, by the way, completely unacceptable, guys. Don't harass people out in public for any reason, but really don't throw things at people and don't yell people racial slurs at people. That's kind of like the bare minimum for society. The bare minimum. So when this kid gets arrested for throwing coins at Dave Portnoy because he's Jewish and he's like, oh, you're going to pick up the coins off the ground, which is like the most racist thing you could possibly do. When he gets arrested for that, I have no pity for him. Like, bro, what are you thinking, man? Yes, we should arrest you for that at a bare minimum just to step you in line a little bit. Like, bro, that's not acceptable. So they were freaking out about how this is an invasion of my free speech rights are under attack. Everybody's coming after me, blah, 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 right? Now, fast forward to yesterday, and the Babylon Bee, Seth Dillon and crew, the Babylon Bee is a satire outlet. They post an image of Megyn Kelly with a pager next to her. And they say Megyn Kelly throws out her pager just to be safe or something like that. Now, if you don't understand the joke, the implication here is that Mossad just bombed a bunch of Hezbollah people by infiltrating their supply lines of the pagers. Like literally they infiltrated the entire supply lines of the batteries and the pagers, and they put a bomb in there and they detonated them all, killing a whole bunch of people. It was a pretty sophisticated operation. So the joke here was that Megyn Kelly has been like cozying up to Candace Owens and justifying what the stuff that Candace Owens has been saying and Tucker Carlson, right? And they're all super paranoid. They're talking about, if anything happens to me, Israel did it. Or Theo Von's he's going, you hear that, Israel? I would never hurt myself. So that's the joke. It's not, you could argue if it lands, it's funny or not funny. I mean, it's obviously pretty edgy, but it's not any edgier than anything Nick Fuentes says on any random night. So I wake up and there's all these people are freaking out about how Seth Dillon is issuing death threats to Megyn Kelly. This isn't a joke. He's not joking. This is a death threat, a literal death. They literally are taking it as a death threat, including Glenn Greenwald. And so I took a little, you got to poke at people when they go this overboard, because these are the same people saying that there's no such thing as woke right, and they're not woke right, which, by the way, the definition of being woke is being emotional, feelings over facts kind of situations. Or in this particular case, this is basically the equivalent, pretending like a joke wasn't a joke and pretending like there's a threat on your life when it was just a joke from a satire website. That's basically the equivalent of like a trans person saying that you have to like, or not even a trans person, just a person saying you have to respect their pronouns. That like, if you call somebody by the wrong pronouns, that you're like literally violently attacking them. Like that's basically the equivalent of it. So long story short, I commented on Glenn Greenwald's post about it saying, dude, are you serious? Like, it's clearly a joke. Stop being hysterical. This is crazy. And so he took another shot back at me. I took a shot back at him. You know what? I don't even blame him. I have no problem with him taking shots at me. I definitely took a shot at him about his degeneracy, because apparently he was like, their pictures were exposed where the guy's like licking some guy's toes while wearing a dress or something. I didn't watch see the images, and Glenn Greenwald's cool to, he can sleep with whoever he wants to sleep with. I don't really care. But if you're going to be a degenerate, you're going to be a degenerate. It is what it is. So you want to own that? That's great. Okay. So he took a shot back at me and posted Dave Farina's Ashton is a grifting fraud video, which I thought was interesting, because he definitely didn't watch it. Because anybody that watches that video, if you can make it more than 5 minutes, bravo. When the guy starts talking about gravity as a pulley force, at that point, if you don't understand that Dave Farina doesn't understand physics, I don't know what to help you. Go ahead and watch Bill Nye the Science Guy or, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Maybe that's more your speed. So anyway, long story short, I've basically challenged all of these right-wing grifty people like Scott Horton. There's actually a promo challenge video. I'm not going to play it now, but you can check it out on my Twitter account if you want. I actually challenged Glenn Greenwald. We can continue this conversation on his show if he wants, or on my show. So basically I've stacked up the list of like every like woke right grifter out there. None of them will accept the challenge. Scott Horton's been challenged, Dave Smith, Ian Carroll, and now you can add Glenn Greenwald. Interestingly, all of them are huge anti-Israel people. I just find that interesting. And I've been lumped into this category now of a Zionist, I guess, which honestly, I don't even care anymore. Okay, enough of that. That's enough politics. I'm over it. If you don't, guys, just if you want to know a little more about me as well, I'm happy to open up a little bit here. I'm the kind of guy that like I get on something and then I'm like really, really deep into it for a little while. And then I just kind of get over it and I'm done with it. Maybe that's part of the reason why I'm not married. Maybe that's part of the reason why I like get into weird video games and I just never play them ever again. Maybe that's why I can dive deep into like research topics like this. But it's also part of the reason why like I don't want to be the guy that like spends my whole life trying to build something. Like I don't want to spend 20 years trying to build some device or some crap like that. I don't have that level of patience. I don't have that level of longevity. I got too much ADD, man. I got to move on to the next thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of the reason why I've jumped into the politics stuff too. It's like, yeah, it's kind of a fun new thing to jump into. But right now, I don't even want to talk about that because I want to dig into even more spicy stuff related to science and physics. Number one, I want to talk about John Ramirez. So, guys, you've got to check out the Jason Jorjani podcast when it drops. I'm still like got chills thinking and talking about it because I feel like we laid out the whole conversation of UFO disclosure from a historical perspective, going all the way back to Tesla and really the Nazis in 1935, 1936. And then even talking about like Ronald Richter and him producing a clean fusion reactor in Argentina. But one of the things that really stuck out to me as a spoiler was that I asked him about John Ramirez. And I asked him about John Ramirez because on the last live stream, we watched that big video of John Ramirez on Project Unity. And I think I told the story that John Ramirez's first post on Twitter was about USA 229. So let me go ahead and share this. I actually pulled this up. I found the tweet. And by saying I found the tweet, I mean, did I actually find it? Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, cool. I was scared for a second, guys. Here we go. Okay. So, actually, you know what? Now that I think about this, I can't even show the tweet because it turns out this was the post, right? This right here is the post that I made. It turns out it was back on May 10th of this year. So, only 6 months ago. And John Ramirez's first post was about USA 229. This was about the same exact time I figured out that the MH370 video, this particular video right here, is not a satellite. We had been presuming that this was a satellite video for a long time, and we finally figured out that it was a drone video. Figured out it was a drone video from doing research into wide area motion imagery, also known as whammy. I basically found a tip that this was whammy footage, and I was like, what the hell is whammy? So I started researching, and I find out it's not satellites, it's drones. And then I find out about Argus and Gorgon Stare, and then I find out, oh, they're connected to the same thing. So very, very oddly, John Ramirez's first post on Twitter was basically saying that this was not USA 229, that the satellite system that I was IDing as taking this could not have done it. And so you can see here, I say, if this is really John Ramirez, then I'm definitely off USA 229 producing the video. Perhaps it was collecting other data. The satellite was definitely there at the right time. Within about 15 minutes, the satellite was in the right spot. But that doesn't mean it took the footage. It still bugged me how a satellite could take this footage. So what I want to point out is this account no longer exists. This was definitely John Ramirez's account, GS15. I just think this is interesting because my buddy Dave Rossi, who I spoke to last week, his account also got deleted off of X. And I trust him more than I trust most people on this planet. And if he tells me that he didn't do anything, like I can't even imagine anything that he could have done that would have got him banned. He tells me he didn't delete it. He tried to appeal. They wouldn't give him his account back. It just makes me wonder if people that know a lot about stuff and they post it on social media, if the government can't step in and get their stuff deleted. It kind of makes me wonder. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when I was talking to Jason Jorjani and I asked him about John Ramirez, you know what he told me? He said, John Ramirez has a good close friend that follows you closely. I'm almost exactly quoting him there. You guys can watch it and judge for yourself when it comes out. He told me that, and the hairs on my arm just went up. And he said the reason why he doesn't reach out and talk, and somebody else I think sent me a message. The reason why I brought it up was because somebody else had sent me a message saying that John Ramirez doesn't know who or what is controlling the narrative related to MH370, and that's the reason why he's never spoken about the videos before. But clearly he's watching because he's making posts about the satellites and like putting little hints in there. The reason why it gives me chills is because that's the kind of person that would have sent me the letter to Ashton Forbes. That's the kind of person that would have sent an anonymous, weird YouTube letter that's like trying to send you down the right path. I don't know that it was necessarily him, but that could have been him. It also could have been Chinese intelligence agencies for all we know. Could have been anybody. Could have been anybody. No idea, honestly. So I wanted to point it out because I just think it's interesting to see that another thing I was watching was a short clip between John Warner IV and Daniel, what's his last name? Dark Journalist. And John Warner was essentially telling him, John Warner is Chris Mellon's cousin, by the way, the same Chris Mellon that's the Age of Disclosure guy. He was telling him, the spooks or whatever watch your show. And he said that a lot of the government guys, they don't like to watch the alien stuff. The alien stuff sucks. It's boring. Nobody who wants to watch the alien stuff. Like the government people want to know about the technology. They want to know about the intrigue behind the inner workings of the intelligence agencies and the drama related to what's going on there. I think that's the stuff that they enjoy the most. And engineers have come up to me and told me as well is that they enjoy the aerospace engineering side and the energy side and the propulsion side of the conversations that we have. So anyway, if you are out there and you are one of those people, thank you very much for watching. Okay. Next thing I want to get into before we get into the Chinese stuff tonight, guys. Sorry, I'm taking a quick look at it here. Okay. One more science thing I want to discuss, and then I want to take a look at this climate change video by the Corridor crew. I couldn't even believe I was watching. When it comes to fusion, specifically, that's probably the main focus here. I have been at a crossroads. I told you guys over a year ago, probably 2 years ago, that I'm not a true believer. I'm a skeptic. I'm a debunker. I'm the best debunker, actually. I'm a real debunker. The Mick West of the world, he's a phony-ass debunker. He's basically like the woke right people, but just like the inverse side of that coin. I'm the kind of debunker that things can really, conspiracies can be real, but you got to show me the evidence that actually leads up to it. It's got to be real, tangible evidence. Can't just be innuendo and hearsay. So the thing that I've struggled with the most when it comes to fusion is the system closed or open? And what I mean by that is when we are dealing with our fusion reaction, is the textbook definition of the energy release all there is to it? Or does the scalar term add another element? And this is a small difference, but it's also huge at the same time. Because if we say that there's an additional term, there is an additional input of energy, the 0 point energy, for example, into our fusion process, now we can design a system that is infinite coefficient of performance, infinite energy. And this is what Dave Rossi was alluding to in our Sunday conversation. He was saying that what if what we have to first do is couple to the system and get negative entropy? And when I was basically saying, well, we have to hit these huge energy levels and then all of a sudden we'll see these effects. He goes, well, what if we just have to couple with the system and produce a negative entropy system and then we can kind of do whatever. That's what he's implying. So I've been on the fence both ways on this conversation. I can't decide if we really need this extra input or if we can explain it all from our conventional understanding of nuclear physics, nuclear science. I'm now leaning back towards there is an extra input and it represents infinite energy. And the reason why I'm leaning that way is because of Randall Mills and Hal Puthoff, that both essentially are saying that there is this source, this reservoir of energy, and that when we're doing things like cold fusion, we're tapping into that. So let me show you this. And I am going a little off tangent here, but we're going to allow it. We're going to allow it. Where is it? Here it is. So one of the people's names who came up in that conversation with Jason Jorjani was Ronald Richter. Ronald Richter. So if you're the person that posted this in my replies, I forget what your username was. So please forgive me for that. A lot of people get mad, say I'm stealing their research. Look, man, if you post it on Twitter, I'm stealing it. Okay, here it is. This is Ronald Richter. What he was saying, this is Ronald Richter, the guy that built a fusion reactor in Argentina in the 1950s. It supposedly was unsuccessful and he's been discredited, but apparently to the day he died, he said it was real. Listen very closely if this sounds familiar to you. We assume that highly compressed electron gas, plasma, becomes a detector for energy exchange with what we call zero-point energy. On the basis of exchange coupling, it seems to be possible to extract a compression proportional amount of zero-point energy by means of a magnetic field controlled exchange fluctuation between the compressed electron gas, the plasma, and a sort of cell structure in space, representing what we call zero-point energy. In other words, Richter was talking about the relationship between fusion and a lattice structure of space-time. Over 5 decades later, it is now the reigning scientific theory of cold fusion, called low-energy nuclear reactions, or to give it a more accurate name, lattice-assisted nuclear reactions. It is to be noted that Richter observed the phenomenon, according to him, in plasma experiments conducted in 1936. Wow. What? Where's my where'd my song? Oh, here. Wow, straight up Kill Bill chat. Okay, so I need to point out. Now this, I don't know, take this how you will. I've been saying basically exactly this for the better part of a year. I didn't even know who Ronald Richter was like 6 months ago. In fact, I definitely never seen this. I'd never seen him say anything like this before. So it's pretty weird when you are coming to conclusions on your own, from your own research and your own information, and then you're seeing guys from 1950s who literally built clean fusion reactors that mysteriously got classified and what have you, saying the exact same thing. So this is what's pushing me back towards the angle of maybe it really is just unlimited energy forever. Like not even the difference between we could burn up all the hydrogen, which would take forever anyway, versus just, nope, we can just pull the energy straight from space-time. That's the difference. The difference between conventional fusion as well, technically we're using up hydrogen when we're fusing hydrogen and turning it into helium, technically. But there's so much hydrogen that it wouldn't really matter. It's the number one most abundant element in the universe, right? So it's a difference that seems slight, but it also matters a lot. So there's going to be more to talk about on that, but I want to just leave that as a little teaser, and I want to jump over here to this other conversation. It's also related to nuclear physics. Basically, a lot of what we're going to be talking about from now on is going to be nuclear physics based. But let me finish this. Yeah, and just for the people in the chat, I'm definitely on to something. Thank you, Dennis. I can feel it in my bones. There is something here. I don't want to say I'm exactly right about everything related to this right now because we're kind of investigating this angle of the UFO phenomenon being connected to nukes and space-time manipulation having been discovered with nuclear weapons and them having hidden it. I'm 99.9% sure that general story is true. But the specifics of it, the details are the part where I'm not really that sure about. And I'm not necessarily that sure and confident on which conceptual view of unification, the idea that quantum mechanics and general relativity can be combined. I'm not sure which is the best or which one makes the most sense at the moment. But 0-point energy, I think, is the idea that makes the most sense. So, electricity. I was sent another video by actually the nuclear engineer who is like, he wasn't debunking, but he was poo-pooing on helium fusion because he didn't understand aneutronic fusion. I think that's kind of ironic because the thing he doesn't understand, the reason why he doesn't get aneutronic fusion is potentially the very thing I just mentioned, that there's this extra input of 0-point energy. If that's the case, if there is this extra input of 0-point energy in fusion, then that means all the nuclear engineers in the world don't know what they're doing, which is pretty crazy to think about. At least the vast majority of them don't know. And they've been doing the math all wrong this whole time, which is pretty scary. So anyway, I was watching, somebody sent me one of his videos, and it was all about the Corridor Crew. It was a Corridor Crew video. And it was about how many solar panels would it take to power the world? And the idea that solar panels are green energy that is fighting climate change. That's the subtext of the video. It's one of the cringiest things I've ever seen, and that's why we're not going to watch really any significant portions of it other than a couple clips I've got here. Instead, I'm going to give you my best, fairest characterization. Now, let me give you a quick disclaimer. The Corridor Crew guys are the guys that semi-famously debunked the MH370 videos, but they didn't really debunk it. They never even faced me face-to-face. They did like a couple pre-recorded setup videos. They didn't get anything right in their videos, but people still just like, yeah, they debunked it. They're VFX experts. Doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. Those things don't matter. And that seems to be their ethos to their work. Because the guy that did this video didn't even understand what electricity was. In fact, it had apparently taken him 3 years to write this script for this 20-minute video because he didn't even understand what energy was. And I don't really want to rag on him, even though I have every single right in this world. I have every right in this world to rag on these guys that tried to take me down. But I remembered that I didn't know what energy, I didn't know what electricity was either. I didn't know what it was either. So instead, I just want to educate. Because the funniest part about this video, I'm going to play the first clip here in a second. The funniest part about this video is that the thing the Corridor Crew is promoting in this video is aneutronic fusion. They don't even realize it. They don't even realize that the very thing that he's hoping exists, the very thing he's thinking that solar will do, which it won't, aneutronic fusion will do, even better than what he hopes for. The problem with these libtards, people that just work with their feelings, that they just, whatever the government tells them is true, is that they think that solar is some super green source of energy, that like, yeah, solar panels are super clean because it's just like pulling the sun's rays in, and like therefore that's ultra clean. But they don't realize any of the externalities that come along with it. How do you produce the solar panels? Those require rare earth minerals, toxic rare earth minerals. So they require toxic minerals to produce the solar panels. The solar panels are highly susceptible to weather. If a hailstorm comes through, it destroys all the solar panels. And they don't work at night either. So they only work half the time, and they don't work very well when there's clouds. And on top of all that, solar panels are only 20% efficient. So the Corridor Crew people, like, turns out, he says in the beginning, the reason why he pushed this video so long is that he didn't understand electricity at all. And this is true for a lot of people out there. They just think, oh, solar panels good, climate change bad. And they don't really even think about how is energy actually produced. So let me just say right away that almost all forms of energy that we produce right now, electricity that we produce, not energy, but electricity, are essentially just a turbine. Steam spinning a turbine. Basically, we heat stuff up. We use that heat to boil water. And then we use the steam from the water to spin a turbine. That's essentially, no matter what form of power you're looking at, nuclear, oil, coal, essentially all of them do that. All of them. So what you're talking about when you're talking about climate change and its effect on the climate is you're essentially talking about how much carbon you're using. You're essentially talking about how efficient the process is. And then you're talking about whether or not it's renewable or not. Like, how long will that run for? And these are not simple answer questions. But let me just skip to the end. The answer to those questions in terms of what are you trying to achieve to optimize all those things? Fusion. Fusion is the answer. Fusion is a source of practically unlimited. It's not technically renewable, but you have so much hydrogen that it doesn't even matter. The efficiency of fusion is unparalleled. Only nuclear would even come close. Solar, wind, they're not even remotely close. And then on top of that, aneutronic fusion is direct energy conversion. What that means is the highest possible efficiency into electricity. When we think of, we want to just pull electricity out of the atoms, that's only aneutronic fusion, because aneutronic means no neutrons. Neutrons are the heat. So if you get rid of the heat, you're doing direct energy conversion into electricity. Now let's watch this video here. Okay, let's see here. Where do I have it? Over here. Okay, go right here. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna let this guy play. This is gonna be one of the weirdest ones. This is gonna be like reacting to a reaction here. Wait, where is it? Okay, I think this will work.
So you are using heat when you say renewable, and a lot of it is less efficient to boot. So he is describing two very different problems.
Is not even compatible with renewables because it's not electric. If it was, we'd actually generate far less energy overall because there wouldn't be any of that waste. Or at least
the argument for electrification isn't necessarily an efficiency thing. It's a carbon reduction thing if you're using sources like nuclear and renewables instead of fossil fuels. But in the case of converting to electric, of an electric car, in an environment, in charging stations that are powered by coal or natural gas, if it's mainly coal, you can actually be more carbon intensive than just a regular gasoline internal combustion engine.
much of it. Because remember, electricity is the good stuff. Okay, so
by the way, I'm gonna keep going here, but I can't stand these people. I can't stand them, and I can't wait for the day when warp drives are just admitted to be real. Everybody admits I'm right, because I'm going to drag these people for the rest of their natural lives. For the rest of their natural lives. Guys, if you think I'm a demon right now, if you think I'm a demon right now, chat, y'all have not even seen this is not even my final form. This is not even my final form. I'm like MF and Diablo up in this bitch. I'm like Diablo. I'm going to save all these clips from my live streams with these people where they don't understand energy, electricity, where dudes are talking about it's the good stuff. Electricity is the good stuff. And I'm sitting here like, bro, yes, it is the good stuff, but it doesn't work the way that you're thinking in your head, bro. It doesn't work the way that you're imagining it works. In fact, the way you imagine it works is literally the thing that I'm out here trying to disclose. The way you think electricity works is called direct energy conversion, aneutronic fusion. The thing that I'm trying to let you know, the government already knows how to do, the military defense contractors already know how to do, but they're not giving it to you and me because there's some major implications that come along with that. Okay, let's let them go. I'm going to crash out, chat.
It's weird. So it's almost like if we could just, it's like what he's getting at is if we could somehow just plug directly into the ground and get electricity out or something. Because, yeah.
It's like if we could just plug into the ground and get electricity out or something like that. Chat, pause, chat. This is where I even looked at the nuclear engineer and I'm like, yeah, man. It's almost like if we had some kind of directed energy conversion-y type thing that we could do. Could you think of anything like that, Mr. Nuclear engineer guy? Maybe any videos that you did recently on something called aneutronic fusion? Have you ever heard of that? Tap, tap, tap. Oh my God, chat. This video really, really triggered me.
Electricity to electricity is efficient. It can be 90-95% efficient. I mean, that is about the efficiency of a transmission line. It's to the point where most engineers don't even express it that way. They express it as a 5 to 10% loss due to transmission because it's so little of that waste, which again comes from heat. But I don't see how he's advocating just getting straight electricity from something. I'm not following him at all on that.
So that's pretty much what I wanted to show right there on that front, where you can see that the guys, they don't even understand electricity, right? The corridor crew guys thinking solar is just magic conversion into electricity. Right? It's electricity into electricity, but that's not really what's happening with solar. And you have to have like a conversion from DC to AC. So even after the 20% efficiency of solar, it's not even remotely close to the efficiency of something like fusion. Now, what's this guy's name? T. False Nuclear. I don't know what his real name is, but whatever. The engineer guy here is basically saying that nuclear energy is essentially far more efficient than solar. It's not even really close. I mean, maybe not necessarily solar, but if you add up all the kind of manufacturing process, the solar panel stuff, then nuclear is, above pretty much all of them. And fusion, direct energy conversion of fusion, is above all of those by a wide margin. Nuclear would be the only one that's close. So let me move ahead to a different clip here about water. This is just another funny part in this video, because then they start talking about, oh, well, we've got to store all this energy. The funny part is this corridor crew guys are right for the wrong reasons. The corridor crew guy's right, but for all the wrong reasons. He's saying what we really need to do, but the answer isn't solar. The answer is fusion. And that's where we're going to be in the year 2100, which is what the corridor crew guy is throwing out there. So then the other issue is batteries. How do we store all this energy? In solar, we have to store all this energy at nighttime. When the sun's not out, we're not generating. We have to store all this energy. How do we store all this, build it up during the daytime, store it all, distribute it, minimize the losses and all that front? So this is interesting what he comes up with here. God, this guy's face, man.
Actually have nuclear batteries that run off of radioactive decay. I'll pin a comment down below if you'd like to hear more.
There's a better battery, one that is so easy to access and so plentiful that not only does it cover most of our planet. It's the most common element in the entire universe. Hydrogen.
Yep.
Water is created when oxygen combines with hydrogen, and the raw fuel to make hydrogen is simply water. The energy from this one jug of water is about the same amount as what's inside the battery of this Tesla. In fact, our oceans could store enough energy to power society for 30 million years. Sounds pretty great, right?
If you're going to use that same sort of large-scale logic, you could also say, let's just extract all the uranium and thorium from it, use breeder reactors, and we'll have enough nuclear power to last us for 5 billion years until the sun engulfs the Earth.
Today,
Or, hey, here's another fun one. Hey, if you wanted to use that hydrogen in another way, you could maybe use that hydrogen, convert it to deuterium, and use it in fusion reactions. And it would, again, last forever, long after the sun had already burnt out, based on our current use of fuels. So the funny part is, I agree with nuclear physicist guy here, nuclear engineer guy, but for different reasons. It's not nuclear, it's not fission that we want to get out of that water. We're not gonna pull all the uranium and thorium out of it and use it for nuclear, although we can do that too. Why not? We're gonna use that hydrogen and fuse it using fusion, and then it'll last forever. And then we don't need the batteries because it's way more efficient to just direct energy conversion hydrogen straight up into electricity. Boom. There you go. That's my mic drop moment. Okay. Now, I've got another last clip I'm going to play there because this part at the end is just brutal. Brutal, man. Here we go.
Who will?
climate change is real. It is unequivocally human-caused, and we've only just begun to see its catastrophic effects. It's easy to point out.
Do you guys just see that? What was that? I'm not going to go full Candace Owens here. I don't want to go full Candy O right here. Look at this guy's facial expression. What is this? I'm not trying to say he's MK Ultra. I'm not saying that. I'm not accusing him of being MK Ultra. I just want to show, like, this guy's head goes like this, and then he goes like, and like he's coming out of being like hypnotized. Watch this. I'm going to go full screen. I'm going to even get rid of my face so you can watch his face super closely. Watch this.
And we've only just begun to see its catastrophic effects.
Look at him. Look at him.
What
the heck is that? Did you see that? Bro. Where's Kurt Metzger? Where is Kurt Metzger when you need him, chat? I need to know all about MK Ultra right now because I can't believe this is real. I sit here and I was watching this and I'm sitting here just wondering, like, how were the conversations happening when they were deciding to record this and film this? And when they did that take and they watched him do his crazy head reactions, were they like, oh, that's great. You did a good take right there. He just did some weird psycho head bob. What was that shit? One more time. Climate change is real. Chat. Climate change is real, and it's undoubtedly human-made. So what can you do, guys, to fight the climate change and the end of the worlds? Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you. You should just listen to whatever the government says. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. So do whatever the government tells you because they know everything that's good. And if we do that, if we do the thing that the government tells us, then we'll do the thing that we said we would do. And that's the only thing that we can do as we go forward. Now, if you think I'm joking right now, I'm going to play the full clip. Here you go.
It is unequivocally human-caused, and we've only just begun to see its catastrophic effects. It's easy to point out how it might be too hard or too expensive. It's easy to look at other massive problems and say, what about them? It's easy to be angry. It's hard to be constructive. So, this is the part of the video where I'm supposed to start telling you what you can do to help. But I think I'll start by just letting Hank Green give you some advice.
One of the most important things that anyone can do, and anyone can actually do this one, is to be informed on the different policies and laws that governments create to try and solve these problems.
My goal for this video was to try to get us on the same page about the potential of solar energy and electricity. Simply put, however we get there, that's the direction we gotta go. So hopefully we can all agree on that.
Chat, is this a horror movie? This is the scariest shit I've seen in a long time. This is way scarier than any horror movie I've seen. This is like is this Smile 3? I think this is Smile 3, chat. I think I just got this. This might be the Smile Ghost. Have you guys seen that movie where the Smile Ghost is going to haunt you? I think I'm haunted, chat. I think I've just been cursed right there. I have to say, the end where he just says, whatever happens is how we're going to end up getting there. Like, that's the most nothing statement ever. Like, you said, hey, what can you do to help? I don't know. I'm going to tell you this guy. And he goes to some other guy and he's like, you should just listen to what the government says. And then he goes back and he's like, I don't know how we're going to get there, but however we get there will be how we get there. Who watches this? Who watches this? I can't get over how weird this is, man. That is the craziest shit ever, especially because the dude doesn't understand electricity. He doesn't understand energy production. And his whole thought process of how he thinks solar works is actually how aneutronic fusion works. It's direct energy conversion. These are the people that are, and that whole video is like geared towards children. It's geared towards little kids. It's geared towards like 8-year-olds and like 30-year-olds that have the maturity of an 8-year-old. It's basically geared towards those people. So it's just, that's just straight up propaganda. The head twitch, though. And by the way, those are the people that debunked the MH370 videos. So, okay, I just wanted to point that out. Guys, let's get back to the science. Ooh, I'm still spooked out by that. Okay. Let me see where we're at here. Okay, so there was a scientific paper that came up. I think I'm doing the right thing here. We got like 5 different things up at once here. Where is it? Here it is. The main event, guys. China's warp drive. So somebody linked this paper, and I wasn't even sure if it was a new paper or if it was the same older one, because there's been a couple papers about positive energy only warp drives. And I can't tell as well as if this is one that we already looked at before, or I looked at before, and maybe now I just understand better than I did before. But as I read this, I got more and more excited. So I want to go through some of the high points on this particular scientific paper for you, and I want to talk about a little bit of the implications as well. I got to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay. So exploring the Alcubierre warp drive ship by B. Cow. I'm probably butchering that name. If I'm butchering that name, I don't care. Sorry. It is what it is. But University of Wuhan. Oh, shit, chat. Oh, shit, chat. Wuhan? The Wu flu? The China flu? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Thankfully, we got rid of the conspirators. Otherwise, I think we'd be down a rabbit hole right now, guys. Okay. The Alcubierre warp drive ship, a theoretical faster-than-light propulsion mechanism, has long been constrained by its reliance on exotic negative energy materials. This paper presents a novel approach to overcoming this limitation by leveraging generalized gauge transformations to establish a new formula with directly conversion between electromagnetic tensor and the wheel tensor. By manipulating electromagnetic fields, we demonstrate a method to control space-time curvature, enabling the compression of space-time in front of the craft, positive curvature, and expansion in the rear of the craft, negative curvature, thereby eliminating the need for exotic matter. No more negative energy. Furthermore, we analyze the energy requirements for a realistically sized 20-meter diameter warp bubble. under this new framework. Our calculations reveal a significant reduction in energy demands with an established requirement of 4.9 times 10 to the 6 joules, which is far below the infeasible 10 to the 62 joules. So if you need some context here, if you're one of the people who's like, I don't understand science, Ashton, that's fine. I'm here for you. 10 to the 62, this is basically like the mass of Jupiter. That was the infeasible amount. So when people come to you and they say, you say, hey, we've got warp drives and wormholes. And they go, no, I was watching Neil deGrasse Tyson, actually. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was telling me, yeah, science says it's possible, but it would require the mass of Jupiter to do. That's what they're referencing right there. They're referencing the energy requirement of like 10 to the 62, which is 62 zeros, way too big. So this paper takes it down by 55 factors. So remember those 62 zeros? Remove 56. Remove 56 zeros. We're only left with 6 zeros now. So now we've got a very, very small amount of energy requirement. This is actually basically a negligible amount of energy requirement. If this paper is real and correct here, then now wormholes have become almost trivial to produce. Warp drives have become almost trivial to produce right here. Okay, so here we go. Additionally, we explore the implications for causality and time travel, assessing the feasibility of avoiding paradoxes while investigating the potential for controlled temporal navigation. This study builds upon the unification of fundamental interactions within principal fiber bundles, providing a feasible pathway for the engineering realization of warp drive spacecraft. By redefining the role of electromagnetism in space-time geometry, our findings suggest that superluminal travel may be technologically feasible in the foreseeable future, potentially marking the beginning of humanity's interstellar era. Wow. Okay, right off the bat, you go to the references. I found some pretty spicy references. So who is it referencing? Okay, Miguel Alcubierre. Got it. Casimir effect, 1948. Lentz. Visser, Matt Visser, Lorentzian wormholes. Matt Visser is the one that Eric W. Davis said they can reduce the energy requirement, the negative energy requirement of a wormhole to an arbitrarily small value, which basically echoes the exact conclusion made by this paper. Let me repeat that. Eric W. Davis, the guy with the wormholes, all that stuff, he references Matt Visser when he says, the way we reduce the energy requirement from the size of Jupiter is instead of getting the mass of Jupiter, we shape it. We shape the energy into a bubble. Shape it into a thin bubble. Now, the equations that I just showed you, where it produces this it only requires this small amount of energy, that's essentially the energy equivalent of a Tesla car battery. A very, very small amount. And that warp bubble was 20 meters in diameter, which is pretty weird because that's really similar to MH370 videos. It's a little bit off still, but pretty similar. My guess is the MH370 video bubble would be about twice to 3 times that size. So the energy level requirements are actually very similar to the math done in that paper, assuming that that's true. So Eric Davis is the one that said that this takes a small amount of energy. Now, that paper, the warp bubble in that paper is 1 meter. 1 meter thick. I thought the warp bubble was going to be like literally like a millimeter. You know, I thought it was going to be super tiny. So that level of energy requirement is with a 1 meter bubble. I had AI read it. So if that's wrong, the AI told me wrong information, but I think it's correct. So some of the other papers that are referenced here, the other one that I thought was really interesting is this one. I wonder if this is Sonny White, 2013. I think this might be Sonny White. Let me just I want to check this one real quick. When it says White, I get a little bit excited. Who is the one? H.G. White? Could be. It's Harold Sonny White, so I'm not sure. Anyway, that one might be Sonny White. Kip Thorne, I think, is right there, right? Yeah, Kip Thorne. And then you get a little further down, and here you go. Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis, quantum vacuum energy extraction and applications for space flight propulsion, right there. And then a bunch of self-references. So this is where you know. Whoa. Okay, well, I got to stop for a second. Wow. This is the biggest donation I've ever got. Thank you very much for this donation, Troy. $500 donation. Wow. I guess I'm eating good tonight. Thank you very much for this. I appreciate it. Obviously, you're a big fan of the show. I appreciate that. So, thank you. Wow. Okay. This paper. Hopefully, I'll do you justice here tonight, Troy. Appreciate you, sir. So that's what got me excited right off the bat. Now, the idea behind this paper, I think it might be easier for me to summarize with Grok. I kind of had Grok try to do some summaries for it, but I can explain it myself too. Let's just say that when they're talking about what they're saying is essentially we're going to use electromagnetism, pure electromagnetism, to manipulate space-time, consistent with Hal Puthoff's polarizable vacuum model. And what electromagnetism and gravity, that there's an exchange, that there's an equivalence between them, that they're the same thing but different representations. And if that's the case, then electromagnetism should be able to produce what we would see as gravitational effects. That's essentially what the scientific paper is trying to say. And so then it just does pretty much the same thing that Hal Puthoff did, which is you take general relativity and you take electromagnetism and you unify them. You say, okay, well, now that I've created this exchange, now I can just plug the numbers in, plug the math in. And that's all we have to do. And so I'm pretty careful about these papers. Obviously, I'm not a PhD, so it's too hard for me to say, are the equations all exactly correct? But from a general glance, I think it looks good. I think it looks pretty solid. I can't find any obvious faults in the reasoning because they explain what the issues are. The number one is obviously the energy requirement, and that's why I focused on that first. The main thing is the energy requirement. That's probably the hardest part. I can't remember where in this paper, but somewhere in this paper it talks about basically producing pure electromagnetic energy. It also uses a conversion mechanism where it assumes a pretty safe conversion of electromagnetism to gravitational manipulation of about 65%. So you're only going to get 65% of the efficiency using your electromagnetism using this paper as your basis, which that's probably just a guess. And so that's what the equations are essentially saying here. Now, it talks about also a lot of the stuff that we've already mentioned in terms of paradoxes. Is that if this is possible, the big concern that people have is closed time-like curves. This is the scientific idea behind the show Dark. So I've mentioned the show Dark many times on podcasts, so it's probably already been spoiled for you. So I'm not even going to do the spoiler thing, but the show Dark uses closed time-like curves, where what would happen if I were to go to the past using a warp drive or a wormhole? If it were possible to go to the past, now whatever happens right now has to be based on me having already gone in the past. So if I haven't ever met myself, if I never met the older version of myself, that means when I go to the past, I don't go and meet myself, because the closed time-like loop must be maintained. And so this is the big reason why people are afraid of this idea of going back in time, is what are the implications of it? If so, we're creating these closed time-like loops, and these closed time-like loops could lead to the end of the world. In fact, we could be living in a closed time-like loop right now, this very moment. So let's talk real briefly here about the implication of this. Part of me looks at this scientific paper, and I think what we were talking about at the beginning of this is we say, well, China is working on these technologies. I've been disclosing that China has quantum radar. Actually, I'm not disclosing it. It's just papers found on the internet. China has quantum radar. China supposedly now, this is a scientific paper from China talking about warp drives. Another thing that I found, where is it? Right here. And the question is, Is China just putting this stuff out because they're behind in the race? They know that the United States, maybe Russia, we are covering this information up, covering this science up, and we are not letting it leak out to the public. Meanwhile, China doesn't mind it leaking out because it doesn't harm them in any way for it to go out because they already know that they're behind. I think that's a pretty good hypothesis. And here's a little bit more evidence for it. In addition to that scientific paper, when I was digging around just to find an image for my thumbnail, I found this from 2017, predating the MH370 investigation by 6 years. By 6 years, China claims they have actually created an EM drive. Such a device would break the laws of physics. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Now, I've said this many times. An EM drive uses the exact same physics concept as a warp drive. If you can produce negative energy, if you can produce a gravitational wave, that you can ride on it. And an EM drive is using the same principle, electromagnetic waves to manipulate space-time to produce thrust. It's just on a very, very small scale. So EM drive is the slowest version. The slightly faster version, not slightly, quite a bit faster, is warp drive. Warp drive, to me, is going from any, like, let's just say, relativist fast speed up into the speed of light. When you hit the speed of light, now it's a wormhole. That's how I view it. Again, these are just concepts, so your opinion can differ, but that's how I conceptually view the difference between EM drive, a warp drive, and a wormhole. If you turn it up all the way, now you've created a wormhole. Now your object just vanishes as opposed to moving super fast. Okay? So that's why this is super important. Because here you go. God, what are all these ads? Go away, ads. Guess who's back? After a relatively long news hiatus, the impossible EM drive is making a comeback. Researchers from China's space agency have released a video through state media earlier this month showing supposedly functional EM drive. Have China possibly made it possible? Said, let's review where we're at. Prior to this month, there were two supposed breakthroughs regarding EM drive. One was a NASA peer-reviewed paper that claimed that the EM drive can work. I'm pretty sure that this is Sonny White. Yep, it is. There it is, right there. Boom. Sonny White, Harold White, right there. Harold White. Oh, I'm on the wrong. Okay, sorry, you aren't seeing the right screen. Okay, well, I just clicked on that link right there, and that's Sonny White's paper. So the results, however, have been largely contested by experts and considered controversial at best. So what is EM drive? So it kind of explains the EM drive. Actually, this was a different one that I was reading, but another one was trying to connect it to warp drive, saying that some people call EM drive warp drive, and that is actually accurate. I think if you are new to this, the most important thing to understand is that one of the big revelations from this research that I've been doing into nuclear weapons is that EM drive, warp drive, and wormholes are all really the same thing. They're actually really the same thing. The only difference is more of a colloquial term for us because they're different. Like if we were to see them happening, it would look different. An EM drive would be like a balloon that's just kind of floating through the sky on its own, using its own propulsion. A warp drive, we're going to be seeing something zipping around. And then a wormhole, it's like, that was there a second ago, and now it's not there anymore, right? So 3 different seemingly things, but they all use the exact same physics. All use the exact same physics. Now, there's a couple things I want to show here, and we may dig back into that. Okay, yeah, I've got a few different things to show here. So let's flip over real quick. I think this is the best way to do it. Hal Puthoff in 0 Point Energy. Hal Puthoff has to be on whatever Majestic 12 or the JSONs or whatever the heck. He's got to be, man. Somebody linked the old podcast that Hal Puthoff was talking about, I think the end of last year, like 1 year ago. And I wanted to play this part for you guys as well, because I talk about the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents all the time. All the time. On every podcast, I talk about them because there's just no way in hell that 38 scientific papers got approved by the Defense Intelligence Agency and we're on a classified Pentagon server. That's not disinformation. Like, that is literally them looking forward. So let's just listen to Hal Puthoff. So this way you don't have to assume what I'm saying is correct or what have you about my interpretation of the papers. Here you go. Here's Hal Puthoff.
In this case, actually, I was responsible for this and commissioned 38 of the best scientists in the world in their various areas of expertise to say, well, where would their field be in the year 2050? So we figured that would be the best shot at getting the most advanced thinking about everything. And so I've got my list of areas here. I'll just read a few of them so you realize that we were really pushing right out to the very edge. For example, aneutronic fusion propulsion, superconductors and gravity research, positron aerospace.
Whoa. Slow down, boss. Slow down. Aneutronic fusion propulsion? Aneutronic fusion propulsion. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite one because before all this, that was the craziest one. I had no clue. Aneutronic fusion propulsion. I didn't even know those words went together. That's how little I knew about science before all this. Now I go aneutronic fusion propulsion. That's the sauce, baby. That's the one you want to know. Burning clean fuels, clean fusion, using it for propulsion. Yeah, that's everything I want to know about. Okay. You keep going, Hal. Keep going.
Propulsion, warp drive, dark energy, extra dimensions, brain-machine interfaces, quantum vacuum energy extraction, space-time metric engineering, traversable wormholes and stargates, advanced aerospace materials, metallic glasses for aerospace use, negative mass propulsion. And we did 38 studies like that. And so that's the best we could do to try to get beyond this stovepiping of all the technologies that would be of interest.
And Hal, I know that you're being polite with the timing, but to the extent you want to read every single one of those 38 and another public, I think for listeners, it's actually important to really see the range of the advanced materials, the bio. So I'd encourage you to take the extra minute, if you'd like to share the full range.
Okay, glad to do it. Programmable matter, biomaterials, metallic spintronics, advanced aerospace configurations and visibility cloaking, metamaterials for aerospace use, statistical Drake equation, which of course has to do with thinking there may be something to ETI being out there, field effects on human biological tissues, high energy laser weapons, pulsed high power microwave weaponry, gravity wave communication, quantum entanglement space communication, maverick versus.
It's so crazy. I know who most of the authors are. Like the non-locality quantum entanglement one, that's John Kramer. Negative mass propulsions, Friedrich Winterberg. Magnetohydrodynamic air breathing, magnetohydrodynamics, Paul Siz. Space-time metric polarization or whatever is Hal Puthoff. The warp drives are Eric Davis. Like, I've actually gotten to the point where, like, I just know from the name of the paper right away already who the author is. And a lot of them, the authors weren't even public. You had to, like, go find out who the author was and match it to a paper that had, like, the same body but different header on it. Pretty weird. Anyway, here we go.
Corporate inventor cultures, aneutronic fusion propulsion, superconductors and gravity research, positron aerospace propulsion. I think I read those before. Here's another set. High energy laser weapons, quantum computing and utilizing organic molecules and automation technology, negative mass propulsion, cognitive limits on simultaneous control of multiple unmanned spacecraft, quantum tomography of negative energy states in the vacuum, detection and high resolution tracking of vehicles at hypersonic velocities, magnetohydrodynamic air breathing propulsion and power for aerospace applications, anti-gravity for aerospace applications, ultracapacitors as energy and power storage devices for commercial and military applications, aneutronic fusion propulsion, cockpits in the era of breakthrough flight, laser light craft.
My dude said aneutronic fusion propulsion 3 different times.
Nanosatellites. Now, interestingly, because it was so highly classified at the time, none of these experts knew that we were putting this together to try to figure out ET technologies. They just thought it was a broad investigation for Bigelow Aerospace as to where.
Okay, that right there, that was the thing that really stuck out to me. He said none of these people knew we were doing this to investigate UFOs, ET stuff. Huh. That, I got red flags. I got red flags there. Why? Because why is Hal Puthoff not knocking at my door to talk to me about the MH370 videos? Why is that not like the number one thing of interest to him? If he had no idea what was going on in those videos, if he was getting all these papers written to try to figure out what was going on in the UFO topic, then how would he not be interested in the MH370 videos, which are showing all of those papers in action, in military footage? It makes no sense whatsoever unless Hal is CIA, unless Hal is NDAs, unless Hal knows those videos are real, unless Hal knows we've got that technology. I don't know if it's reverse engineered technology or what have you. If he's being honest, if he's being truthful here, which I can't take him at his word. I can't take him at his word here. I wish I could, but the guy is CIA, he's DIA. He could easily be lying publicly to protect nuclear weapons secrets. Certainly could be. But if he's being honest, then the technology we see in the MH370 videos is non-human intelligence technology. That we found something once upon a time, and we've been figuring out how to build it, and we've had some breakthroughs. We've had some breakthroughs. Now, if he's lying, then what's going on is that those Black Project engineers, he knew they weren't researching alien technology. He knew they were just pushing Black Project technology to the forefront. That what was really going on there is that he met up with a bunch of his buddies that were all in Black Projects. He knew they were in Black Projects, and he knew they knew stuff that the general public didn't know. And he said, you know, write papers based on your knowledge that doesn't break any NDAs. So I think that those papers are probably the most important papers in the history of the world. In the history of the world, because there's nothing like those papers out there at all. If you want the red-pilled scientific papers that's going to send you down the rabbit hole, then you read the DIRDs. Those are the papers you want to read. You're not going to read about air-breathing magnetohydrodynamics and aneutronic fusion propulsion anywhere else. Right there. Those are the ones you want. So, another thing I found, I was asking Grok about fusion and Richter. And one of the references in there, two of the references, I got two Yahtzees. I think I'm just going to skip right to the Yahtzees. I wasn't sure if I'm going to read through some of the Grok stuff related to these. We might, but I just want to get to the Yahtzee moments off the bat. One of them was this right here. I was looking for stuff related to Richter and fusion and the connection to 0 point energy. And I find this document. 1996. Cold fusion and 0 point energy. I mean, let me just say real quick. How the hell is Grok finding this stuff? Grok is finding stuff that I don't think I would have ever found in a million years. Not in a million years. So here it says, on June 23rd, 1996, Dr. Bob Hieronymus conducted a live radio cold fusion special with Eugene Malov of MIT, Professor John O.M. Bokris, and Dr. Hal Puthoff. What follows are transcripts of the separate interviews between Dr. Bokris and Puthoff. Wow. Okay. So what did Puthoff have to say here? So Puthoff explains 0 point energy. He explains 0 point energy as this energy that's always out there all the time. Let's see. What does he say down here? And he talks about atomic energy. He says, actually, Bob, I'm quite confident that he gets asked. What did he say? Oh, so he gets asked about climate change, actually. He gets asked about climate change. I thought this was really interesting. Now, this was 1996, guys. 1996. Guys, I was born in the 80s. In the 90s, we were being told that climate change meant that by the year 2020, we were all going to be underwater. They were telling us that. The propaganda was there. I don't care who tries to tell you that, no, nobody ever said that. They were absolutely saying that, guys. So anyway, he gets asked, even though propagandists like Rush Limbaugh say that ecological disasters are nothing more than left-wing media hype designed to tax big businesses, our environment is not in good shape. And yet there's a great deal of hope that new energy technologies can do a lot to keep us from entertaining an ecological no return zone. Before we review cold fusion and 0-point energy, would you assess in general terms the possibility that new energy technology could revise our environmental problems? What does Puthoff say? So this is the moment where Puthoff could have gone, yeah, it turns out, we're destroying the environment. We got to clean up the environment. We got to make everything cleaner, blah, 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 because, we got to go invest a bunch of money in solar power. He could have said that, but, he ain't going to say that. Actually, Bob, I'm quite confident that will be the case. Before we knew of atomic energy, we thought we were running out of coal and maybe oil wouldn't last too long. And then we came upon atomic energy. Now, as it turns out, atomic energy has its pluses and minuses, as you realize, but still, it was a new source of energy that hadn't been thought about before. But once we had it, we could exploit it. I think about this at a time we are entering a new phase in which a lot of new energy research is going on, whether it's solar, wind, and so forth, but also so-called 0-point energy that we will be speaking about tonight. I think that holds out a lot of hope for our future environmental situation, and as far as we know it, a completely benign energy source as far as ecological concerns go. Now, here's another little weird tidbit before I dig into some of the spice on this. Yeah, and when he takes shots at Rush Limbaugh was basically the Nick Fuentes of the 90s. Everybody was talking about him. Everybody had an opinion on him. Everybody hated him, loved him, whatever it was, right? He was kind of like Alex Jones before Alex Jones, but more political, less conspiratorial. So this was definitely a lefty who was saying this. Anyway, he says, well, Eugene Malov who says hello, says you are going to be very excited when you see the next issue of Infinite Energy. Eugene Malov would later on get stomped to death in his home. I just want to point out, Eugene Malov blew the whistle on Cold Fusion in 1989, blew the whistle on the cover-up of Cold Fusion in 1989. And I'm just going to repeat this every single time I bring up Eugene Malov, because it's super weird that he was stomped to death in his home by his neighbors, but it wasn't solved until like 3 years later or something like that. And the guy was trying to expose that the Department of Energy and MIT were covering up the cold fusion results that were positive. Okay. So anyway, Hal Puthoff took it pretty seriously. So Hal Puthoff says right here, this is something we've said a lot. He says that if you think about 0-point energy, he says, if you look at microscopic scale, it's more of like the base of the waterfall with a lot of frothy, seething activity going along, talking about quantum mechanics, 0-point energy, rather than just something like placid, empty space. He's saying space is not empty. This is 1996. In fact, John Archibald Wheeler, one of the developers of the hydrogen bomb, likes to point out that the volume of a coffee cup, for example, in empty space, there is roughly enough energy to evaporate all the world's oceans. This, by the way, is not a fringe concept. This is the basic underlying concept in modern quantum theory. There it is, Chad. This is one of the earliest references I can find ever out there related to that coffee cup reference. And now we know, no doubt, that coffee cup reference is referring to an empty coffee cup of empty space. Has enough energy to vaporize all the Earth's oceans. Think about that. Now, go back to the beginning of this live stream where I said, I'm at a crossroads trying to determine if fusion is really restricted to just the chemistry of the molecules involved in fusion, or if there's an extra source. Hal Puthoff's ground state of the hydrogen atom scientific paper argues that the atom, the electron spinning around the atom, should be radiating energy away. It should be radiating energy away, and in the process, the electron should slam into the nucleus, should slam into it. But that doesn't happen. And therefore, the model that he developed is that the 0-point energy is feeding energy to the electron orbital as the electron orbital is losing energy in an equilibrium. In an equilibrium. And what this implies then, though, is that if you could squeeze the electron orbital down, then it would release energy. It would release energy. And in theory, then that energy would go back to normal afterwards. This is almost identical to Randall Mills' hydrino theory. Now, I'll go ahead and say Randall Mills does not agree. I've been emailing him, and we've had some interesting emails back and forth. But he thinks that he's got it solved and nobody else has it solved. The government doesn't have it solved. And he doesn't believe that there's this 0-point energy out there. He thinks that when he squeezes the orbital, that's just potential energy, which that's an interesting thought. What you're saying there is we've got this potential energy there, and if I squeeze it, I'm releasing that potential energy out. The same way if the rock is on the hill and I push the rock down the hill, I'm releasing potential energy from the rock being up at the top of the hill. But the alternative approach is the one that I just told you, which is that the electron is radiating energy. It's just absorbing energy at the same rate from the 0-point energy field. So those are the two different theories on this. Now, let me go back to this now, because this is relevant for any discussion related to 0-point energy connecting to cold fusion. Let's see if we listen to some more Hal Puthoff, if we can understand what we think his viewpoint is. So he talks about Bob Forward and this idea that we can potentially extract 0-point energy. Let me see here. Which part do I want? I think it was a little further down here. Okay, I think this part right here. He says, okay, well, now we can get to some cold fusion. Earlier tonight, we reviewed the progress being made in cold fusion by Dr. Eugene Malov and Dr. Bakris. From your perspective, what is cold fusion? Is it a fusion process? He says, I guess at this point, I may have a minority view. This is Hal Puthoff. I don't actually think that it is fusion. One of the complaints that people have about fusion is that all the heat coming out, one would expect that there to be a lot more radioactivity, a lot more neutrons, X-rays, and so on. Yet the amount of actual heat that comes out is extraordinary, at least as claimed in some of the experiments in comparison to some of these so-called fusion products. So I am entertaining the possibility that although there may be some low-level fusion going on, and certainly Professor Bakris is going to go over the data of transmutation of elements, makes it look like there is some fusion going on. I think that it may be possible that a greater amount of heat energy is coming out as a result of 0-point energy extraction process. Hello, well, would you look at that? And there are a couple of researchers, in addition to myself, who've been trying to work out the theory of how that might be the case. I think that so-called cold fusion phenomenon are very complex and may involve more than one process. Of course, being a 0-point energy chauvinist, I think that it is 0-point energy. Maybe I can be forgiven for saying, well, cold fusion is probably from 0-point energy. But actually, we've gone beyond that. And we've made some predictions that we are trying to check out in the laboratory. I think that at this point, to be honest, we just have to say we don't know what the phenomenon is. So I think this is pretty interesting because I would love to know if there was ever a follow-up to that testing that he did in the laboratory. I think that if Puthoff was taking it seriously, even at this point in 1996, then he probably knew it was legit. Okay, and then he says a couple of more paragraphs I want to discuss here. This part I think is the key point. Now, I think that since some power companies do have large economic structure and so on, I think they will, of course, get into it as anyone would. But I think it's sort of like the ham radio. Yes, there are commercial radio stations, but you have a lot of ham radio operators out there building their own rigs and talking to each other and so on. I think there's a chance, more like in wind energy and solar energy, where there'll be smaller scale entrepreneurs who may actually feed energy into the grid as the wind people are doing at this point. Now, kind of interesting there, he was actually implying that people might build their own reactors. So he's speaking to this idea of getting off the grid using 0-point energy technology right there. It didn't end up coming to fruition, not 30 years later, but maybe it will. He says, When the idea of the hydrogen atom was first put forward in the form that you often see it in textbooks, where it looks like a tiny little solar system with the electron planets circling around the nuclear sun, one of the questions at the time was, why doesn't the electron simply radiate its energy away and spiral into the nucleus in a way similar to the way our satellites have certain losses and spiral into the planet? At the time, the answer was simply, well, it's just magic of quantum theory. It doesn't obey classical rules. And for some reason, hydrogen atoms are like little perpetual motion machines. But in fact, from the standpoint of zero-point energy approach, we now recognize, and the calculation has been done. In fact, I published it myself. This is Hal Puthoff. We show that indeed you expect an electron in a hydrogen atom to radiate its energy away, but it picks up energy from the background zero-point energy and is therefore sustained by it. What that means in terms of physics is that it shows why atoms can be seen as perpetual motion machines. It is just that they always have an energy input from the background to make up for the losses. One of the embodiments of cold fusion we are looking at is the possibility that when the hydrogen atoms enter into metal lattices, the conditions for that balance changes. And as a result, calculations can be done to show that some energy is released. There you have a case where by playing very smart with the hydrogen atom, you have a chance to change its orbit under certain conditions and possibly get a release of energy. Woo! Yahtzee chat. A little Yahtzee for your Friday night right there, guys. The secret to all of this is getting your hydrogen trapped in your lattice of your metal. That's the secret to all of it. All of it. That's the secret to thermonuclear weapons too. Do you know what the fusion payload is on a thermonuclear weapon? Deuterized lithium. Do you know what that means? Take a wild guess, anybody in the chat. What do you think deuterized lithium means? It means they squeeze the hydrogen inside the metal lattice of the lithium. They have to use a special process to do it. They have to do a special chemical process to get the chemicals to mix together, and then the deuterized lithium can basically be molded into whatever shape they want after that. So you basically force your hydrogen to get into the lattice point of your metal, just like they did with the cold fusion experiment when they had their deuterized hydrogen would get stuck in the palladium lattice. Same concept. Same exact concept. So there's Hal Puthoff saying, what's going on here in his view of zero-point energy? Now, I'm going to give it two different perspectives. One perspective is the Randall Mills perspective, brilliant light power. Randall Mills is saying there is no zero-point energy. But then the question is, okay, when you squeeze your hydrogen atom down, how's it going to go back out? How's it going to go back out? How is it going to regrow? Where's the energy going to come from for it to go back to normal again? Assuming that it does. So I guess this would be the way to test it. If you find a way to squeeze the orbital of the electron on the atom, if it goes back to normal, then we know zero-point energy is the answer. Because the only way it can go back to normal is it has to get an input of energy somewhere. If you squeeze it and you release energy, the only way for it to go back to normal is it has to suck that energy, that same amount of energy back in. This is the reason why I don't agree with Randall Mills. Randall Mills is saying, yes, you can squeeze it down, and now this is a hydrino. If I squeeze the electron orbital down, it'll be stable down here in this smaller state. This is my hydrino. That's what Randall Mills calls it. I call that negative energy. This is the standard amount of energy. Squeeze it down, get some energy out. So the secret is the lattice structure of that. Now, let's switch over here because I want to show you my next Yahtzee. I planned to show this one from the actual document in which I found it. So let me go back to this. So I was looking at Richter and zero-point energy. Here you go. Yeah, this is going to be another crazy one, chat. So I was looking at Richter. I said, tell me everything that you know about Richter here. And said Richter claimed to use a high explosive driven shock waves in lithium deuterium mixes to trigger fusion in small containers, producing energy without uranium. Wow. Wow. Do I think Richter was legit? Oh, hell yes, I think Richter was legit. There's no way that he hit the nail on the head like this and it wasn't legit. The fact that they discredited him, that said it didn't work, that it was pseudoscience, I don't believe it at all. In fact, this might have been the first situation where we began to suppress this technology from the public at this point. Because there you go. He's explaining right there. He's talking about use explosive-driven shock waves in lithium deuterium mixes, which is probably the exact same thing that's happening to MH370 and the MH370 videos. In 1951, Juan Perón announced to the world that Richter had succeeded in controlled thermonuclear fusion, promising energy in half-liter bottles like milk. Wow. So then they investigated. The debunkers came and they said, sorry, the temperatures are too low. The temperatures were way too low. There's no way you can be doing fusion. Well, how sure about that are you? Because helium fusion is doing aneutronic fusion right now at 10 times lower temperatures than ignition. And that's just what they're publicly willing to admit. So if you look at this, you go, maybe not. So the project was shut down in 1952 amid scandal. Richter was briefly arrested for fraud, but just later released. Mainstream history views him as a charlatan. Now, so he went to Argentina since his death, and he said that he saw, how did he say? Richter studied physics in Prague, worked at particle accelerators in Germany in the 1930s. He claimed to have observed anomalous phenomenon in plasma experiments in 1939. That's from the document that I linked. Here we go. So this is the reference here. Let me see here. Richter was aiming for clean fusion without fission primers or radioactive waste, using deuterium and lithium in plasma arcs. Chat, are you kidding me? Look at that. By the way, this isn't even we're not even to the Yahtzee moment yet. This is just extra bonus that I'm giving you guys tonight because I'm a good person. He claimed gamma rays and high temperatures indicated fusion, but critics says it was impossible at that scale. We know that things are scale invariant. This predated 1989 Pons and Fleischmann by decades, earning him the label of inaugural fusion energy brouhaha. So basically, the first person who did cold fusion, I mean, there may have been people before him, but the first person who's getting the credit is Ronald Richter. Ronald Richter is the originator of cold fusion and aneutronic fusion. Can you believe it? Wow. Because when he's talking about deuterium lithium, we're looking at aneutronic fusion. That's the same, very possibly the exact same reaction we're using in thermonuclear weapons. Possibly the exact same reaction. ZPE connections. So it says, fringe theories suggest Richter's shockwave plasma setup transduced ZPE. Transduction means converting energy. So when it says transducing zero-point energy, it's the idea of pulling zero-point energy out of the ether. That's essentially what that means. Some links to aneutronic fusion. This is probably from me. Hal Puthoff, zero-point energy researcher, speculated cold fusion might involve ZPE extraction. This is how I found that paper, by the way. This link right here is how I found the one that we were just looking at. So Grok has some pretty spicy links. Where is it? Okay, so then I mentioned lithium down here, and I don't think I'm going to read all this, but here's the interesting one. When mixed with deuterium, lithium-6 can undergo the reaction. Lithium-6 deuterium leads to 2 heliums plus 22.4 MeV of energy. So this is a huge amount of energy. Huge amount of energy released from a small amount of fuel, and it just releases helium, which is just like air, basically air. Now, is this the one? Don't think that's the one. Okay. Where's my thing here? Where's the link? I hope I don't have to just cheat. One of these links, I'm just looking to see if I recognize it. Crap. One of these links in here, I don't know which one it was. It has some kind of scientific paper link on here. Is a link to another document, which I'll just pull it up from my history if I don't see it. I thought it was in this first one. Let's see here. Is it this one? No, that's not that one. That was the one I was already on. Crap. Hold on. I'm going to pull it up. 1 second, everybody. Shit. Crap. Why don't I see it? Is it this one? No. New Energy Times. Crap. I don't see it, guys. Hold on. Why don't I see it? It was last night. I'm scrolling through my history to try to find it. Sorry, guys. I think I closed it because I wanted everybody to see it in real time, but I don't think that's going to happen now. So 1 second here. Where is it? 1 in the morning. Oh my god. Crap. Okay, well, I guess I'm just going to spoil the thing, the surprise. I had an amazing surprise here, but one of these links goes directly to an article by Friedwart Winterberg. Friedwart Winterberg, guys. So, and it talks specifically about Ronald Richter. I don't know why I can't find it here, but one of these links in this grok goes directly to Ronald Richter, and basically a blog post by Friedwart Winterberg talking about Ronald Richter's research and the difficulty of cold fusion. And interestingly enough, he says that maybe the challenge that Ronald Richter had was that it was much more difficult to produce fusion than what he might have thought. Sorry, I'm still looking for it here to see. I know it's one of these. Is this one, right? IOP Science. Let me see here. I think I might have found it. Nope, that's not it. So crazy. How come I can't find this? It's definitely one of these links in here. Okay. Yeah. Jesus. Okay, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to try to find it later, guys. But one of them in there has it. So, anyway, Friedwart Winterberg shows up out of nowhere, and he's got one of the references. So, it goes to show that grok is able to pull really random things. And Friedwart Winterberg was one of the people that wrote those DIRDs. He wrote, I think, 2 of the DIRDs that I was mentioning earlier. And Friedwart Winterberg mentions that Ronald Richter was working on this aneutronic clean fusion. He doesn't say aneutronic in the blog post, but he basically talks about the controversy of it. And he essentially says that producing fusion is potentially a lot more difficult than what Richter assumed, which I think may show that Winterberg agreed that Richter was on to the right ideas with his aneutronic fusion approach. But as we see in the MH370 videos, they had to build these supercomputers in order to get the calculations exactly right. Because when we're talking about getting these shock waves to compress on our target, it needs to be perfect. It can't just be good. It's got to be exactly perfect. Got to be absolutely exactly perfect. And if it's off by even a little bit, then you're not going to get a perfect reaction. The secret to efficiency is the more perfect you can get your waves to form and collapse on your target, the more efficient your thermonuclear reaction is going to be. And then the challenge from that is, how do you extract it? How do you get controlled thermonuclear reaction? One that you can control the reaction and you can get the amount of energy out of it that you want. The MH370 videos show that they've got this figured out, because you can't teleport a Boeing 777 until you can control the fusion reaction and produce it the size that you want it to be. And if you can make a reaction that's big enough to envelop a Boeing 777, then you can make one that's small enough that will allow you to extract energy from it as well. And if Hal Puthoff is right, and the hydrogen atoms are being fed by 0-point energy, then we have access to infinite energy. Infinite from our human brains, that energy is out there. There's so much, an ocean of energy so vast that we could never get through it in our entire lifetime. We would destroy the universe before we ever used up all that energy. So I will try to find the Freidwart Winterberg post, guys, because I closed the window, unfortunately, yesterday. I should have just left it open. I wanted to do a nice big spoiler and click on it and have you guys be like, wow, look at that. But for some reason, it's just not, I can't find it all of a sudden now in here. So if I can find it, I'll post it later for you guys in the Discord. You can take a look at it and read Freidwart Winterberg's post. Because we also saw Freidwart Winterberg was also talking in Sabine Hassenfelder's replies. So Freidwart Winterberg was one of the originators of inertial confinement fusion, one of the pioneers of inertial confinement fusion. And the textbook that I read was all from him. And he talks about lithium deuterium. In fact, let me just show that real quick instead, because I think that's probably better. Physical principles. And I think there's only one more thing tonight. Thermonuclear explosions. So the physical principles of thermonuclear explosions. Just to prove to you guys that I'm not a complete phony out there. Only a partial one. Only a partial phony, guys. So let me go and find lithium. So here you go. He says, since as we show in the next chapter, the temperature in a fission explosion can reach ignition temperatures of deuterium. I'm sharing this, right? Yeah, okay. But not DD thermonuclear. It was long believed that a thermonuclear weapons program would depend on a large tritium inventory. However, this has two very serious drawbacks. Tritium would have to be generated in a nuclear reactor out of lithium. So where's the next lithium thing? Wait. Well, somewhere in here. Oh, this is it right here. Here it is. Boom. To overcome these difficulties, Jeter proposed in a remarkable paper to use lithium deuterized lithium, lithium-6 deuterium, directly as the thermonuclear explosive by letting the tritium generation occur through neutron reactions during the thermonuclear explosion itself. So what he's saying here is that the most efficient fuel for a thermonuclear weapon is to use deuterized lithium. Why? Because it produces its own tritium in the process. So instead of doing a nuclear process to produce tritium to make your thermonuclear weapon, just make your thermonuclear weapon in a way where the process, the fusion bomb itself, produces the tritium needed for the chain reaction. That's essentially what this says right here. So when you read this here, you can start kind of wherever you want on this little matrix. But if we start at the lithium-6 neutron here, you see this produces helium-4 and tritium and a little bit of energy. Then that tritium mixes with deuterium, and that produces helium-4 and another neutron and more energy. And then that process can just repeat over and over. A chain process can occur. So I just wanted to go ahead and show that as well, because lithium is definitely a big secret to this. And then just to repeat, the other secret is the idea of getting your deuterium trapped in your lattice structure of your metal. In palladium is what they were using in 1989. We are potentially using lithium right now in our thermonuclear weapons as our fusion bomb. And MH370 had lithium on it as well. Okay, guys, let me take a look and see what else I wanted to review here tonight. I think that's it. Let me just take a look. Oh, one more thing I want to point out here. The person that gave me that donation the other night asked me to read that paper. And I took a look at it. Pretty weird, man. Weirdly accurate. So somebody seems to have written me a scientific paper like on my behalf that basically explains the MH370 orbs, the science, the technology in a speculative sense using all the real physics principles that I've been talking about. So Alexander Slobnik, thank you very much for writing this. Good job. Honestly, I don't think I've read the entire thing just yet, but I took a glance through it and I thought it was pretty interesting. So I just wanted to give you a shout out, sir. Thank you very much. If you guys are interested in this, I'll post this in the Discord later on tonight as well. You can take a look at that, see if you're interested. Okay, let's see what else I've got. Actually, I think that's it for tonight, guys. Okay, so let's do some super chats and let's call it a night, guys, for this Friday. It's been a good one. Okay, I'll give you guys a copy of that paper in the Discord later if you're interested. So, Brian Premble, thank you for this super chat, says, They have tried to close it, but the plasma is leaky around the magnetic fields. Deuterium and tritium, I've seen the machine. Yes, the big challenge is, this was actually what Winterberg pointed out. Winterberg pointed out that when they started trying to do fusion, there was way more challenges than they thought. Initially, they just thought, okay, we're just going to fuse our atoms together. We're going to make this plasma soup and molecules will fuse. But then they realized there were instabilities. Then they had to solve all these different instabilities. This is the reason why Winterberg credits or discredits Richter. Says that the reason why Richter was probably not successful at a larger scale is because all these challenges, including the plasma instabilities, came out. And this is interesting because it may mean that it's easier to produce a free energy device that moves around rather than producing a free energy device that stays still. Because they can direct those plasma currents and use them as exhaust, use them as propulsion. And so part of this process, maybe you have to have an exhaust port in your fusion reactor. You might not be able to have a fully contained fusion reactor because the plasma is always trying to escape somewhere. Could be wrong, but if that's the case, then we've been going about it all wrong. Once again, Troy, thank you very much for that super chat. Huge super chat. I really, really appreciate it. And then Timothy Foster says, thank you for teaching. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. Everybody in the Pill chat, I just want to appreciate you guys in the Pill chat and my Rumble fams as well. Thank you guys, Rumble fam. Appreciate you guys. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for tonight. Take a look at the scientific paper on warp drives. Take a look at the scientific paper that was posted by Alexander out there. I will post a link to the blog post about Freiwort Winterberg when I find it here as well, so you can see the connection between Ronald Richter. But at the end of the day, where I'm leaning right now is that the 0 point energy, that fusion is a pump. Fusion is a pump into the 0 point energy, specifically a neutronic fusion, and that we can harness essentially unlimited energy from the 0 point energy, which represents space-time itself. What those implications are of that, if you want to know what those implications are, then check out the Hard Truths podcast with Jason Jorjani. It should be dropping either this weekend or early next week. We had to do a little bit of editing because I accidentally went live. And if you want to see that, sorry, I already made it hidden. We'll get a teaser out there, something for you guys. But Jason and I go through all of the implications of this technology being hidden, what it would mean if it were to come out, and then what does disclosure look like, and what is that roadmap? So check out that podcast if you're interested. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. And then one last donation before we log off here. Zapparoo says, fantastic. It's been a great one. Thank you to Lulu. Yes, I'll go take Lulu out, give her a treat. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, MH370X. I'll see you guys on Monday. Later, everybody.
Out in the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeezed so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Thin shell formalism plates so fine, spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Unknown forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound. A shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow. From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos.